asked if I could buy a pair, and I was told no. Anyway. I have a room for wardrobe.
Every day?
Yes. Yeah. She doesn't pick out my clothes.
Sure. You picked out pretty good. You look really nice.
Thank you.
He's up here.
No point.
Yeah.
She lives with Billy and you, so let everybody just assume that.
Hello? No, I'm just, let's give everybody space.
She just doesn't want to sit there.
But to answer your question, she moved this year.
As in space wise, yes.
The next vote.
Sit there.
I always heard that train coming. I always ran for you.
All right, it's 7:30. Let's call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Consideration of items to be removed from the consent agenda. Hearing none. Consideration for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. Comments from the public.
Madam President, Minnie and I are here tonight on behalf of the FFA alumni. And we're just wanting to express our thoughts about losing our advisor and maybe not being able to find one, whether the program will be able to continue. And we're hoping it will. And maybe there'll be somebody inside the school system that could take over for a year. And maybe keep it going until we can find another suitable FFA advisor. I think it's, Minnie and I are second generation, both our dads were in FFA, our kids were. So it's a good program. A lot of kids need to go through it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Any more comments? All right, move on to Superintendent's Report.
Just have a couple of items because most everything else is in the agenda. So I do want to update generally for everyone here today on our search as far as personnel. We've had an extraordinary number of changes this year, obviously, as you know, but I wanted to point out a couple things. First of all, we have not had any luck so far in finding a licensed candidate for a program and for our ag program. And we did interview a couple of candidates, and one couldn't afford to move here, and the other one, they got it before we could get to them. So that was unfortunate. Not very many candidates this year out there in a lot of positions. But we are looking at some other options, and so we'll discuss that as far as the board in executive session later on. But we are looking at some other possibilities. Some other things at Eisenhower, we're looking at some changes as well. We have, as you know, we've talked about kindergarten class coming up that could be as many as 65 students, which is a good thing for our numbers. Kindergartners count as a full-time student now, not just a half. But on the other side of it, we need to look at another staff member. So we have 4 sections, and so we have some options there, some opportunities there that we will discuss and then make public as we go. But as you know, we've had staff, we reduced staff. They have first opportunity to come back, and some other possibilities out there for some things we might want to do. But Eisenhower, it goes from having plenty of staff to suddenly maybe be short of staff. At the high school level, in junior high level, we had a resignation, we have not been able to fill social studies position. We took one part social studies, part PE, and we're looking at absorbing a position there and other staff picking up those parts of that. But we still have a social studies position which has required social studies courses, government and American history, that we need to fill. We have not had an applicant yet. And used to being an old social studies teacher, there were 50 applicants for social studies jobs. And we have not had a viable candidate yet. So we may have to do some adjustments there, and we're looking into that. We are getting ready to talk to a couple of potential candidates for the counseling position, and we'll be able to hopefully find someone there that can fill the needs of the district, particularly in testing and a lot of our running our CTE programs, doing some things in the counseling part there. Anymore at the secondary level, counselors don't counsel students in a way that you might at an elementary level. They go to professional people to visit with about that kind of counseling. But the kind of counseling we're talking about is college prep, CTE programs, setting up the courses, class schedule, things like that. And we're looking at 7-12, and we look at K-8 as splitting that. So that's a little bit different in the past, but the K-8 has needs, more and more needs, and we need to look at something to be able to have someone spend more time down there. So those things will happen this week. Hopefully at the end of the week we'll know more on the counseling part. Obviously we're still short of cooks, custodians, and bus drivers. We have a custodial position we have not been able to fill so far. All year we have not been able to fill a bus driving position, and we're short 2 cooks, I believe, going into next year. So market is tight for someone that wants to do those jobs. Pay is not the best, but need someone that can be on time and be there on a regular basis, and we'll continue to look and discuss that as we discuss pay for next year. Summer projects, the second thing I have, as you know, we talked about roof work. I have not heard back from them yet. I was hoping we could get the roof workers in ahead of, before we get bad storms, that they'll be wanting them somewhere else for damage from storms, but I haven't heard from him yet. Supplies are a mess for them to get roofing materials. I think they do have some on stock, so hopefully they'll get here, but materials are insane right now for everything to get someone to come in and do something. Just a shortage everywhere. We probably will do a couple of concrete projects a little bit this summer sometime, sidewalks and things like that. And of course we always have our normal classroom cleaning, gym floors to do and things like that. We have had, I know we'll have a staff member out, 2 staff members out for part of the summer in the custodial maintenance for some surgery, and so they will miss some time, and we're already short 1 custodian, so we may not have as many projects that we complete. We'll just be getting the regular normal maintenance completed this year more than some years. So we'll keep that. We always have someone that mows full time, so they're going to be very busy with the staff that we have. Other than that, that's all I have. Everything else I think is part of the agenda.
Number 7, curriculum update, Mrs. Manning.
Alright, I'm gonna.
You're going to steal it, aren't you?
I am.
Just a second, I got you.
Well, I am doing the presentation tonight for Applied Technology, and I wanted to talk with you about the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. I think 3 years ago I came and we talked about that, and this year we held that event for the 5th time, and it has just grown every year and gotten bigger and better, and so I'm just going to share a little bit about that with you. So I will mention that we do work closely with Norton County Economic Development and Mike Posson to organize the event, and Norton County Community Foundation has funded the event for the last 5 years, and they give out some pretty significant prizes. They buy all of our kids a meal, and they give them each $25 to use towards their display booth and their project. So that's a really nice thing. So these are the winners this year. The event took place right in the middle of December. We weren't able to have our open trade show like we have in the past because that was right in the middle of the COVID outbreak, and parents weren't attending school activities at that time. So they came and dropped off stuff to set it up, and then we held the event. So Ella Juneman was our winner this year in the junior high, and she won $500, and she made the cookies that I brought for you tonight. So I thought that would be just nice for you to see one of the businesses, and that is an active business and something she is still working at. We added in a couple years ago, also giving additional prize money for like their speech and trade show. So some of them maybe didn't make the top 5, but they did win a prize for their presentation. So these are some of our businesses this year. There's an assortment of service businesses and then students that sell products. And one thing I think I'm most proud of is that a lot of them are really doing these businesses. So like this is Allison, and she really does run a lawn mowing business in the summer, and it's neat to see them earning money, and there's just so many things that they're getting from doing this event. I tie this into my computer curriculum. They design a business logo, business cards, things for their display, and then they write a paper, give a big speech, but there's just lots of economic concepts they're learning and business concepts they're learning, and it's just a very positive thing. Several baking businesses this year. I missed getting a couple of the trade show booths. These ladies are very artistic. They had one of the most unique presentations I think that we've had so far. They designed a coloring book. They're very artistic in their pages. I don't have a sample for you tonight, but they were very nice. Very well done. Bath bomb business. Couple photography businesses. So part of being an entrepreneur is determining what is there a need for and is there a market for my product. And Tyler capitalized on that. He started sewing masks last summer and sold cloth masks, scrunchies, and more masks. They had tie-dye masks, vinyl flags. And Eli got second place. And I didn't get a picture of Gavin. I think when I went around, he was giving his speech. He has an ag business, which is something I'd like to promote a little more. Like, we are in a community with ag. Even on the high school level, this would fit in really well with FFA projects. I met an ag teacher a couple summers ago that requires all of her students. She's over in Tribune, but they all also compete in the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. But he had a noxious weed business, and he really does that business. Tack cleaning. We have a lot of food businesses. Mr. Melvin typically takes the 8th graders to Washington, D.C. At the end of 8th grade, and it costs money. And so one thing I think that has helped really promote this in the 8th grade class is that a lot of them are trying to earn money to pay for their D.C. trip. And Brexton would be an example of that. That was something he started doing at the end of 7th grade. And we have had a couple babysitting businesses for baking and food. Ella Juneman and Natalie Simmons both also applied to be wild cards at the Kansas Entrepreneurship Challenge, and they were selected as finalists to be in the top 40. Natalie sells hair bows and accessories, and she's been doing this business with her mom for a couple years. So that was really neat that they got picked to be part of that. This is a gentleman who has an actual lawn mowing business and makes a significant amount of money. We only had one group on quarantine, so I don't have a picture of them, but we were able to compete with Zoom. We had one student in person and one student at home, and we were still able to do that, so that was nice. Had an engraving business. Cornhole boards were popular with the students. Photography and a pet sitting business. So it's kind of a highlight of the junior high businesses. The high school businesses, the high school competes in separate category, and then they pick one overall winner. So Cooper Frack started that business in 7th grade, and then he's brought it back to the YAC for 2 years, and he sells wax candle melts, and he was picked as the overall winner. Jalen Rumback has done it for the 3rd year, and if you want to keep coming back and participating, you have to expand your business and do something different. So if they both want to come back next year, they already have a plan of they're expanding their product line to be able to do that. So those were trade show winners for the high school. So Mr. Melvin does the high school businesses in his economics class. I didn't know he was going to be here tonight, so I didn't want to put him on the spot. I don't know if you want to share anything about your businesses.
They did a good job. I mean,
Yeah,
they have to juggle a lot of things because we still have class.
right.
So in order to do this, and it's a requirement for the economics class to be in the entrepreneurship challenge, since we learn about entrepreneurship and economics. But they did a really good job of working outside the class and fitting it in. And, I was proud of all of them. All the kids did a great
Yeah.
job.
It was different because we didn't have the community this year. We didn't have, you know, we have a lot of people that come and buy things, and we do it right before Christmas, so we sell a lot of Christmas items, so that's kind of nice. That's Jalen and her display. Jalen and Cooper, Jalen also was a wild card for the state competition, and Jalen and Cooper actually got selected to be in the top 11. So the last week in April, on the 27th, they participated in a virtual boardroom. When you get to the state, I'll show you these, and then I'll talk about state a little bit more. Joel started this business in junior high and came back and did it as a high school student. I don't have all of the high school businesses, I just highlighted those that placed. It is neat though to see some of these high school kids come back, because the seniors this year were 8th graders the very first year we did it, and a lot of I think every kid that did it this year for Mr. Melvin's class had also done it in junior high, so that was fun. K-State organizes the Kansas Entrepreneurship Challenge. Network Kansas organizes and sanctions all of the county events, but then K-State, their College of Business, they have a special entrepreneurship part of their college, and that department organizes it. So it's different people that you're working with. To be selected as a wild card, they had to submit their paper, and then this year they also had to submit a video. So all 3 of these ladies made a very nice video and spent their spring break making, you know, a 4-minute elevator pitch and talking about their business. And they were all selected to go on and to be judged, to have their paper and their video judged. And then Cooper and Jalen participated in the virtual mock boardroom. They had 11 businesses they picked as finalists, and to be in the top 11, they received $500. Just to be picked to the event, the other 2 groups will receive $250. So, we didn't make the top 2, but being in the top 11 was pretty exciting. So, and it was virtual. It's fun to be at K-State, but it was different this year. But I'm glad that we were still able to do it. So, overall, it's a great project. I like seeing the growth in my students. I know I have 7th graders that are excited, and they're already telling me they already know what they want their businesses to be for next year. So that's kind of exciting to me that they're so into it. So.
But it doesn't have to be a business they're actually doing.
No, I have a lot of students that just do a mock business, but because of the DC trip, I think that kind of has promoted kids wanting to earn money, and maybe their parents saying, yeah, you can go to DC if you pay for half the trip, and so that has really encouraged them to actually launch their business. So any other questions about it? Some of you have been here, so you know what it is, so thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, number 8, summer transportation request for athletics.
Okay, Coach Melvin and I worked on this a little bit. Remember last meeting we had a discussion, and then we got together, and we're really on the same page before we got together, so it didn't take very long. But we talked about the proposal for the district would provide transportation for teen camp, 1 teen camp per high school activity. high school team. And we came up with the idea that everything would fit, that would do a high school team in a 400-mile radius from Norton, easily. That'd get you all the way to Kansas City, Lincoln. And then I got to think a little bit about some concerns if it was a bus, which mostly is football, but would probably take a bus. Most would take vans or Suburbans or something like that for basketball or volleyball, things like that possibly. But a bus, we had to worry a little bit about what a driver can drive. And we don't want to have the expense of a driver have to take them down and spend the night before they can drive back. So we cut that down and set a 5-hour radius within Norton. That's still plenty of opportunities to go to team camps. And Coach and I visited about that and came to that agreement. So our recommendation would be within 400 miles of Norton or a 5-hour radius for the bus if a bus is needed. One thing to remember on this, next year you'll want to look at, probably we bought a bus, this year, a route bus this year, is we have vans, or we have Suburbans that are getting a lot of miles, 160, 170,000 miles. So even in just going to these camps, it's going to add some miles. And so we do need to next year, since we bought a bus this year, is to look at probably a Suburban or two. Currently, the vans we've been buying, they discontinued putting those out for bids. So Suburbans and excursions are the two ways to go. An excursion costs more than the Suburban. So something to consider for next year you might want to do, because we got one at almost 180,000 and one at 165,000. So, but that's our recommendation. Coach, anything else on that?
That's what would be great. And after talking with all the other head coaches, they would really appreciate that for safety, obviously. And like I said, each of those sports usually does one type of team camp or team competition.
So if anyone wants to motion that or not, or whatever.
So are we, are the wishes?
Agreed.
I think you make something out of that, maybe.
I move that we allow each high school team to go to one team camp per year within a 400-mile radius or within a 5-hour radius if a bus and a driver are provided.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Ms. Shrine, graduation plans.
Graduation plans, as it stands right now, are to be as typical as they were the year before last. So I do not at this point in time plan to put any restrictions on attendance or face masks or anything else. So the band will play, the choir will sing. I will allow attendance as the gym accommodates. I don't think between now and Sunday the county will put any restrictions on attendance, but if they would, I would, of course, accommodate what they tell me to do. But at this point in time, I am planning on graduation being held as it had been year before last, without restrictions.
All right. Any other discussion? Questions for her? Okay. We will go on to high school girls wrestling.
Okay, I'm trying to remember last month, for sure, back at our last meeting, but I believe one thing we need to do as far as the league is concerned is show that the board approves girls wrestling as being a sport in Norton High School. And we had discussed keeping the girls basically in the same kind of schedule as the boys, except of course obviously they would go to a girls regional, girls state tournament. But I think in this area most teams are going to still have their girls travel together the same as their boys. They just wrestle separate, obviously, because girls cannot wrestle boys now. So is that correct? Pretty much. So we just need approval really of the sport.
Maybe we approve girls wrestling as a sport for school.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Oh,
And junior, and junior high.
We have a motion and we need a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. All right. LOB increase.
Okay, we have discussed this in the past, and we need to have the board decision this month as to what they would prefer to do in increasing the LOB, our LOB from 30% to 33%. And I want to go over a couple of things, background again on some of this and where we are, where we stand today. And then discuss what the additional 3% would do for us and some of the numbers that go with that. So we've been unfortunate, as you know, in our student numbers. Everyone knows it dropped from, we used 675 for our FTE just last year. This year we got to use 672, even though we did not have that many students. Next year we get to use 653. You'll get to use 653 FTE. Then in 22-23 is where things could get very interesting. Currently, this year's audit, we came back with 619.7 audited FTE. That's 50 less than just not long ago. Now, it's possible you would have to use that number. However, if next year your student numbers go up, we talked about a class of 15 kindergartners coming in, or 15 more than normal. 50 kindergartners is kind of what we've had lately, and we're looking at 65, let's say. If you go up 15 more kids and everyone else holds their ground, hopefully they would go up, but we've hoped that before, then you might be looking at 634. So I kind of did some estimates with 619 as a number, which is not good, and 634 as a number. Now what has saved us so far is under the law for public ed that was finally approved by the state Supreme Court. Each year our per student FTE amount has gone up, so that's saved us, or it'd be worse. So it was 44.36, then it was 45.69. Next year it'll be 47.02, and then the last year, which is the year it goes down, our numbers go down, it's 48.46. After that, I think it's based on the cost of living increase. So you're going to talk about 1% or 2%. It's not going to go up like it has been. It may stay flat. So that will be the number, and that is really very helpful these last 2 years that it's been that amount. Now, these are kind of our general fund numbers that we've had, and then these are estimates, which with things like free and reduced lunch numbers, which determine our at-risk numbers and amount of money we get, is really an estimate. But you can see how much we've dropped general fund, even with the increase per student funding. If we only have 619, now you would go up $14,000 as my estimate if you get like 634, which I thought was a safe number to use, hopefully, but not a guaranteed thing. Now our LOB through this time, LOB is really tricky because sometimes you get state aid, and then another year you could lose state aid for LOB, and it's $40,000 worth of state aid. And how I've never really got how they've determined that, although once again that has to do with your poverty level, so your at risk plays a part in that too. So if it shows we have few kids sign up for free and reduced lunch, they think we'll have more money because wow, no one's signing up, which is not true. They're just not signing up. So here's how that has gone. This year, we only got about a $4,000 increase in LOB. That's not very much, at 30%. And then estimated if it was 30% next year, it would drop that much. And then that's really a guess, but it would drop even more because of our lower numbers. Now, if you go to 33%, and these are estimates, you would raise that much more. So it would add 171,000 one year, then approximately 162, 169. Those are estimates because I don't know what the state aid would be on top of that. One thing we are going to lose to keep in mind is they have let us go on our transportation costs. They set a number a couple of years ago and said 2016. And they said if your transportation number is higher than this, you can use your number. If it's lower than this, you can use 2016 number. And they've let us do that all the way through till now. Next year, they're not going to let us do that so far. And the legislature's about done. So that hurts all rural schools, but it hurts us because we dropped quite a few kids that were riding, and our miles are down. And at this time, it'd be about $38,000. Now, if you get more kids back and they live in the country, it's going to help. But I don't know if it's going to go back up to the 2016 number. But that's, as of right now, with that, that's what our number is right now that we have in school. So part of your budget is based on current time number, and this part, your base state aid part, you can use 2 years back or 1 year back numbers. You don't have to use your current. But when you get over there in transportation, you use the numbers you have right now. And your at-risk is figured on the numbers you have right now. And we finally got our audit back now that the year's over. So that was handy. Now, so a couple things. Through all this year, some of the problems we had that have been solved is the special education concerns have been taken care of. So we are in good shape as far as what we pay in special education. It's set to be budgeted. With carryover, it's good down the road for several years. Even if you have to use this number, it gets tighter, but you're still in pretty good shape if you do a couple things the next couple of years. Okay? So that is one thing that is good. Okay? However, I'm not sure, as is right now, even with these increases per student, that you can do things like the raises that have been part of the negotiated agreement, especially if health insurance goes up. We still don't know what health insurance is going to be next year. I mean, we had a pandemic, so I can't think it's going to be great. But we don't know what additional amount we have to pay to cover a single plan. So that's an unknown right now. Now, with the extra LOB funding, you have a little bit of room. We have saved by combining some classes and stuff. I would not deny that. And even though we're going to bring some staff back, which we need to because we're gaining some kindergarten kids, that's awesome. And we'll probably I hope, gain some kids back that left. But we don't know how many we're going to get back. So the 3% increase gives you some room again to do that to 33%. Now, what a question everyone wants to ask then, also I didn't mention that it's very important that we just talked about this problem, is classified. Is keeping up with what's being paid in town and around on classified salaries. After you've been here a few years, we're pretty competitive. Starting salaries, we're still, we've worked on it, but we have to continue to work on it. And doing that and meeting our needs for certified pushes it pretty tight unless we do something in addition. So, what a lot of people want to know is, well, what about taxes? What's that going to do to taxes? So, I did some checking on that, And we called Robert down at the courthouse, and I'm estimating between 2.5 and 3 mills would be the increase in mills by doing 3%. Now, so I asked Robert, I said, well, if it's 2.5 mills, we asked what, like, on a $100,000 value, what the tax be? Well, on a home, it only increased the taxes $28.75. On farmland, $75 per $100,000. And on commercial, he said $62.50 it would increase. So, not huge increases. Because farmland's at 30%, commercial 25%, and homes, of course, are quite a bit less, 11.5 assessed value. So that would be the tax increase, 2.5, and that's at 2.5 mil. And I'm guessing it's going to be between 2.5 and 3. Last year, when I visited with KSD, he said he did a quick guess that it'd take about 2.5 mil to do 3% for us. And that was cut off the cuff, he figured that. But looking at what a mill raises, about 55,000 for us, that's pretty close. Might be 3 mil. So, it's a very complicated process. Robert said, well, if you're going to do it this year, because the legislature's done a lot of things to make it difficult for entities to raise their taxes. Well, they made it difficult for entities to raise their taxes, actually. And that is, you'd have to, right now you do a resolution, if you, to vote on a resolution to approve, there's 40 days to protest. 10% of the voters have 40 days to protest. The reason we're doing it now is so we would have an answer, we would know before you did a budget, because you don't want to do your budget thinking one thing and find out you had a protest and you need an election, and you probably would say forget it because you don't want to pay for an election. So that's why we need to know before July. So that's why we're doing it now. The other thing is then with the new laws, Robert would have to take, and there would be 2 opportunities to protest, have budget hearings basically on it, one in August and one in September is the way I understand it. But that's like our regular budget. They can come in and say they don't agree and that, and you can say, okay, and if you want to do something you can, but it's like a regular budget hearing. That has to happen twice. In the future, after this year, every time the taxes go up on something like this, or even I believe if our bond would go up and we had nothing to do with it, he has to send every tax person, I believe, something that says it's going up. I mean, he has to send paper to everyone that pays taxes. So it wouldn't just be this deal, it's anything. And that would be if the city does it, if the county does it, anything in the county that collects taxes. That's my understanding. So he said, well, it's not easy now, but it's easier to do it now than down the road, because then every individual person, for him, and he's talking about for him especially. So, like I said, we don't know, our general fund is paying salaries, capers, insurance, things like that, and our LOB pays everything else, including some salary at this time. So, to be healthy moving forward with the loss of student numbers that you have, I would recommend that you do this. Question? Yeah, I can try to answer.
I'm happy you went and checked it out. That was good.
He was gone all last week. We finally got a hold of him this afternoon. It's not an easy thing, but losing that many kids, and I'm hoping that you get a lot of kids back, and that'll put you in a good position over time. Because your year is not, next year is a little bit tight, where you have to use this number, but this, one of these numbers, either one's below that number, and I'd be shocked if you get back to that number that quick. Now, if you keep having 65 in kindergarten, now you're talking. But we've been losing in recent years in the middle of the elementary or at the high school where we don't know, it's just people leaving and not getting quite the number replacing that we always had in the past. We would always get good numbers of kids in as kids moved out. And man, we had a couple of years left. Remember back here, we dropped to this number out of the blue when we thought we were going to gain kids. That's when we negotiated the salary schedule. So you just never really know, but we're pretty solid on the kindergarten class. We feel really good about that. It's going to happen. But on the other hand, those kids need 4 teachers.
Wishes of the board.
Make a motion that we increase our LOB percentage from 30% to 33% of our general fund.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll second the motion. More discussion.
I really don't want to pay any more taxes, kind of thing going on now. The economic times are going to get tougher.
Any further discussion?
Disagree, but I don't want to cut more teachers and start increasing class size room either. And if we can take an opportunity, I mean, again, where this is the max that you can go to. It's hard enough right now to find teachers, let alone go to another year, down 2 or 3 years down the road, and start looking at having to cut a couple more, knowing that it's hard to fill positions now. I think it's probably the best opportunity just to assure we can keep who we have and not get to a risk situation later on.
And this doesn't mean we have to do it. We have the authority.
You have the authority to do it. So, and I would recommend for a couple of years that you do that. Now, I don't know, like, if you go a couple of years and you do 33%, and then you say, okay, we're doing great, we're going to go to 31. You can do that without any kind of paperwork. But then if you go back to 33, that's when Robert's going to have to blast out all, because it's going to go up again. Your meals are going to go back up. So just know that down the road. But you do have the right to up to 33%. We had 30, and you did not always have to do 30. You have a minimum of like 15, but we always did 30 because it's got where we needed it. We just depend more and more. It's not an optional budget. It used to be LOB was like optional. There's no option to it. They've made it where even with the increases, they've made it something you have to have.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 3-2. All right. Board member reports.
So you don't have 4 votes? You don't have 4 votes? 4.
Except for resolution, we'd still have to have 4.
We have to have 4.
I think you have to have 4 for
I think even if you have a quorum, you still have to, it's just not simple majority
you
for a
have to
quorum.
have, yeah, it's not simple. You have to have 4 votes for it.
So then it does not pass.
Correct.
It does not pass.
Yep, it does not pass. All right. Board member reports.
We had a SEC board meeting on Monday, April 19th. Nicole Glenn, a representative for the assistive technology team, presented the team's yearly report. including the goals for the team's 3-year plan for the 2021 through 2023 school year. Mrs. Rhea shared the happenings of the cooperative, administration finishing up evaluations for select staff, federal fiscal Zoom through KSDE, Region 8 in Great Bend, director's call, new teachers, school psych, assistive technology, and autism meetings. Deb and Cher attended the KIC regional meeting virtually. The TIP and VIB grant applications will be opening soon. Teacher checkout will be virtual, running May 10th through May 25th. The office was closed the afternoon of May 5th for a reception for Deb Rhea and Wes Topol at the Huck Boyd Center from 2 to 5. Myself, Corey Roy, Christine Thompson, Shayna Weens, and Austin Pooh attended. Mr. Topol updated the board with the ASO update and current level of reserves. Mr. Topol shared a projected fiscal year 21 ending balance with the board. He also shared the options for the fiscal year 22 district contributions. The board will be asked to set the contributions during the May meeting. The board approved renewing membership in the KASB school board and the legal fund. They also approved participating in the Kelly mentoring program. Also, the addition of a positive behavior support consultant and a certified position for USD211 was approved. The board also approved to allow SCK SEC to submit an application for grant funds for the staff educational scholarships. The meeting was adjourned at 10:18 p.m. and the next meeting is next Monday, May 17th at 7:30 p.m.
Our curriculum council met the day after our last meeting on the 13th. The Applied Tech, the Adobe textbook rotation of Chromebooks is going on. Language Arts had their state assessments the week of April the 5th. No report from Fine Arts, but Melissa Granberry will be the new chair for next year. The math state assessments were going on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. They will have a curriculum review in May. State assessments for science were starting. Ms. Mann and Mrs. Phillips presented at the April 12th meeting. Social studies, there was really no report. The civics test for next year will be a practice test and they have to pass for graduation. Nothing on the wellness. For assessments, the state assessments in each of the language and English were done. Math and science were coming up. There was none for history. It should be done by the final week of April. The KISA process is in the 4-year pause, and they gave a report as the 1st of April. That was in place of the outside visitation team meeting. The curriculum spotlight for this month will be Applied Tech. They do have curriculum reviews set for Pam Gashler from Fort Hays for math, fine arts, and social studies. And we have a meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30 for the final one for this school year.
The PDC's next meeting is next Monday, so hopefully everybody has everything submitted.
All right. Executive session for negotiations.
5 minutes.
I move we go into executive session for negotiations, to discuss negotiations with the NTA, not to exceed 5 minutes in the boardroom with superintendent and the school board. Do we need to teach the principals or just the board?
Not this time.
Okay, just the board and the superintendent.
Second?
Second. Further discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you.
See you, Chris. See you, Mindy.
Try to stay out of
All right. Anything from the executive session? All right, we will move on. The next agenda item is non-elected personnel, executive session for non-elected personnel.
It'd take, I would say, do 15 just to get it, hopefully, in that time. I'm lucky. Okay.
I move we go into executive session to discuss personnel and personnel assignments as protected by the KOMA principles as well.
Yes.
To include the board, the superintendents, the 3 building principals, for an to not exceed 20 minutes in the boardroom.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 5-0. Yeah, you got your cookie down, duh.
You want us to hold the cookies?
Why? I should get some more in there.
Yes.
This Roy before that.
See how that goes.
Ouch.
Give that shit up.
Is there a hole in that wall now?
Yeah, there is now.
There you go. Sounded like it.
Yeah. I don't know what I was pushing up there, but it's counting now. So.
All right, we will call the meeting back to order. Motions from the executive session. I move we accept the resignations of Lacey Chestnut as the NCHS Assistant Volleyball Coach, Shane Miller as the High School Counselor, Assistant Wrestling, Senior Class Sponsor, and District Testing Coordinator, Becky Jones as the SAD Sponsor, Steve Vance as the Math Representative on the Curriculum Council. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those same sign, motion carried. I move we nominate Libby Nicholson for Eisenhower Elementary, Bill Brockelman as the head high school wrestling coach, Crystal Montgomery as the NCHS head girls tennis coach, Todd Bolt for the NCHS head wrestling coach, Jalen Urban for the math representative on the curriculum council, Tony Fiskus and Kathy Richard for summer workers, Tessa Hauser, Roman Hauser, Lucas Melvin as summer computer workers, Jeremy Hawks, Cherry Brooks, Lucas Melvin as the summer weight room. Along with that include approving the coaching and sponsors list as presented. And then all of the certified staff that have not previously resigned or been released from their contract, and all classified staff that have not been previously resigned or been released from their contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 5-0.
I'd like to make a motion for the removal of the program FCCLA.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. By the same sign, motion carried 5-0. Anything else to come before the board? We are adjourned. Thank you all for staying.